let's go on. Let's talk about Kim and Kris's conversation. I thought this might have been like my favorite part of the episode. I thought this was really interesting seeing Kris. I thought it was a little bit random, the way that it kind of like came up, but I wasn't mad at it. One of the things that I feel like the Kardashians are starting to do is I think they're kind of really hyper aware of the amount of influence that they have. And I'm glad to see them recognizing that. I kind of liked the conversation with Kris saying like, hey, you know, I kind of have some guilt about the fact that I've exposed you guys to this career and it can bring in a lot of negativity. I thought that was kind of really neat of her to say, and I liked Kim's response of being very tough about everything. What did you think about the conversation? And did you ever see Kris sitting down and having a conversation like this? Because I never did. I felt like it was always about business or martinis with Kris. Like I never saw her have a conversation quite like this, and I like it.
So true. No, yeah. I mean, or both, business and martinis. I think, right. You know, it's definitely, they are clearly trying to humanize themselves to the public. It's very clear that that is something that is a goal for them. To make it more relatable, to make their lifestyles more relatable. Because I mean, objectively, they're in the press every other day with people saying they're unrelatable. No one can relate to this anymore. It's so out of touch. It's so out of reach. And I think, you know, they're trying to be more human in that way. And I guess this is Kris's version of it. And I think it's a really interesting take. You know, it's something I never really thought of. Kris ever feeling guilt for her daughters and her family ultimately being catapulted into the limelight. And I think that's a really heavy burden to place on her shoulders, given she's not a psychic. Like she couldn't have foreseen it to have achieved such success as it did. Like, you know, they talk about season 1 all the time of Keeping Up. They were like, yeah, we didn't think that we would get picked up for a season 2. Like they didn't think, they're like, oh, we'll like do this silly show and that's funny and like maybe we'll get a career out of it, but who knows? Like, you know, she wasn't planning on it becoming this empire, this huge, you know, an iconic, you know, and it's an American iconic family. Like it's just one of the staples in pop culture and in history now. Like they're going to be written about in textbooks, and I just don't think that's something that she could have ever foreseen. So I like that she's thinking about it like that, and in a way of taking some accountability for the influence they have, and you know, the influence not only that they have on the world, but the influence that they have in each other's lives. Because, you know, for a minute there, for like a couple of years there, it kind of felt like it was otherworldly and like they just didn't really have their brain on the floor. Their brain was up in the clouds somewhere.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was really interesting to hear them have this conversation. And I feel like they're kind of finding their moments in the show where they can do things like that. And I like to see that.
Yeah.
And like you said, I think there was a point in time where I think they were collecting their check and kept it pushing. And I like to see them more or less like doing it all, addressing the influence that they have. And I like to hear even like Kim talk about the negativity that she receives and goes through, because I'm sure we all forget. I mean, like we know she's Kim Kardashian. She is like one of the most iconic people in our generation. But it's like one of those things where it's like you forget that she's just a person. She also goes to sleep like we do and wakes up 100%. Like we do, and you know, puts one foot in a pant leg and then the other foot in the pant leg to get dressed. Like she's human, but I think we forget that. You know, I forget that.
No, 100%.
I mean, I do. I feel like she's like a superhuman
too,
because of the amount of fame that she has. But
amount of fame, amount of money,
nice
amount of things she does,
relatable
pressure. Yeah, 100%.
Exactly. It's nice to hear the relatable factors of her, like, you know, even she gets hate, even people don't like her, you know, and I'm like, it's not that I'm glad that she gets hate, but I'm glad to hear that she's acknowledging it and that they bring it to the forefront of the show now, and I like that. I think it's cool.
Yeah, me too. I'm into it. I'm very much into it.
Me too. And I love Kris Jenner. I think she's just great. I just love Kris Jenner. She just cracks me up.
I love Kris. She's funny. I love her. I actually have the funniest story of all time about Kris Jenner before we move forward to our next scene. I was somewhere, I don't remember where I was, but I couldn't quite see who I was looking at. And I was with one of my best friends one of my best friends currently, and I like out loud scream across this, like, I don't know if we were in a shopping mall or if we were somewhere, whatever, but it was clear, like Kris was like incognito somewhere. And I literally scream, I'm like, is that Kris Jenner? Like,
oh my gosh.
But I didn't mean for it to scream, and like, I don't think she heard me, but my friend was like, oh my gosh. And it definitely was her, but it was like, I literally, and we make a joke about it, like every day that we see each other. We'll be like, when we see each other, we're like, oh my God, is that Kris Jenner? Like, it's just, I think it's the way I said it and that I screamed it across like wherever we were. And on the topic of Kris Jenner.
Oh my gosh. You are so lucky that you didn't like cause an influx of people to just like swarm.
I know.
You got so lucky with like no one hearing you. That's so funny though. I love that you did that. I can envision it. I can envision you doing that. That's so funny. Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
That's awesome.